The evening was meant to be a celebration, a milestone of love and family. Lucas Thompson, his wife Emily, and their 2 children walked into an upscale restaurant, their laughter and joy filling the air. But that joy quickly evaporated when the manager dismissed their reservation with cold indifference. "Perhaps another restaurant might better suit your needs," the man said, his words laced with veiled disdain. Bookmark. The sting of rejection hung heavy as they turned to leave, humiliated and heartbroken. Yet as they reached the door, a stranger's voice cut through the air. It was calm, firm, and filled with authority, a voice that would turn their evening and lives upside down. Before we dive into this gripping story of injustice, resilience, and transformation, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you're as captivated by stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another. The restaurant's entrance chimed gently as Lucas Thompson opened the door for his wife, Emily, and their 2 children, Alex and Lily. Their 10th wedding anniversary was a special evening, and Lucas had planned everything perfectly. Emily's elegant dress sparkled in the soft glow of the restaurant's ambient lighting, while Lucas's tailored suit gave him an air of quiet confidence. Their children followed closely, their faces glowing with excitement. The siblings whispered to each other about the dishes they wanted to try, their curiosity heightened by the upscale atmosphere. Inside, the restaurant bustled with quiet conversation, the occasional clink of silverware against porcelain, and soft laughter punctuated the serene ambience. Lucas stepped up to the hostess stand, his voice warm and polite as he greeted the young woman behind it. "Good evening," Lucas said with a smile. "We have a reservation under Thompson for 4. The hostess scanned her list, her expression neutral. Then, a flicker of hesitation crossed her face. She glanced at a sharply dressed man standing nearby with a clipboard. His imposing presence radiated authority. "I'm sorry," she began tentatively, but the man stepped forward, cutting her off. "Good evening," the man said brusquely, his eyes narrowing as he studied Lucas and his family. "I'm Victor Green, the manager here. Unfortunately, there seems to have been a mistake with your reservation. We're fully booked tonight." Lucas frowned, his calm demeanor unwavering. "That's odd." "I confirmed our reservation this morning," he replied, his tone firm yet polite. Victor's smile tightened. "I assure you, sir, there are no tables available. Perhaps another restaurant might better suit your needs." His eyes darted briefly to Emily before returning to Lucas, his expression growing colder. Emily's smile faltered as an uneasy silence settled over them. The children looked at their parents, sensing something wasn't right. Lucas straightened his shoulders, exuding quiet resolve. "I see," he said finally. "Thank you for letting us know." Turning to Emily and the children, Lucas motioned toward the exit. Emily leaned in, her voice a whisper, as they walked away. "What just happened, Lucas? Why would they turn us away like that?" Lucas's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm not sure, but let's not dwell on it now." As they neared the door, a deep voice called out from the corner of the dining room. "Excuse me," the voice said firmly, cutting through the hum of the restaurant. Still on the door handle, Lucas turned and saw a distinguished man rising from his table. Tall and silver-haired, the man carried himself with a quiet confidence that demanded attention. "Are you Mr. Thompson?" the man asked, his tone polite but direct. Lucas hesitated, glancing at Emily before responding. "Yes, I am. And you are?" The man extended his hand. "Harrison Reed," he introduced himself. "I couldn't help but notice how you were treated just now. If you'll allow me, I'd like to intervene." Emily and Lucas exchanged a wary glance. "That's very kind of you, Mr. Reed," Lucas said, "but we don't want to cause any trouble." Harrison's warm smile softened his otherwise commanding presence. "You're not the ones causing trouble, Mr. Thompson," he replied. "What just happened here is unacceptable, and I can't, in good conscience, let it go unaddressed. Please, follow me." Reluctantly, Lucas and Emily followed Harrison back into the dining area. Victor watched their approach, his face tightening with irritation. "Mr. Reed," Victor began with a forced laugh, "I assure you this is just a misunderstanding." "We're at capacity tonight?" "Stop," Harrison interrupted, his tone sharp. His eyes bore into Victor. "I counted no fewer than 4 empty tables when I arrived. Will you stick to this absurd claim, or will you admit what's going on here?" Victor's face flushed, and whispers rippled through the nearby tables. Harrison gestured toward a prime table by the window. "Samantha," Harrison called to a nearby waitress, "please prepare this table for our guests." The young waitress hesitated, her gaze flicking nervously to Victor, who stood angrily. Harrison's tone softened as he addressed her again. "It's all right, Samantha. Go ahead." Samantha nodded quickly, setting to work as Victor sputtered behind her. "Mr. Reed, this is highly irregular enough," Harrison snapped. "This is my establishment, Victor. Your behavior tonight is not only inappropriate, but it jeopardizes everything this restaurant stands for. Consider this your final warning." Victor clenched his fists but said nothing, retreating toward the kitchen as Samantha set the table. Harrison turned back to Lucas and Emily, gesturing for them to sit. "Please, make yourselves comfortable. Tonight's meal is on me." Emily hesitated, glancing at Lucas. He gave her a reassuring nod, and the family took their seats. "Thank you," Lucas said sincerely. Harrison gave a faint smile. "Enjoy your dinner. We'll speak later." As Harrison returned to his table, Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was just the beginning. As the Thompson family settled into their seats, the tension in the air was palpable. Though the table near the window boasted one of the best views in the restaurant, Emily's gaze kept drifting toward the kitchen doors. She could sense the storm brewing behind them. "Is everything okay, Mom?" Alex asked, his young eyes filled with concern. Emily mustered a smile, brushing a hand over his hair. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Let's focus on having a nice dinner, okay?" Meanwhile, Lucas scanned the room. His instincts told him there was more going on than met the eye. Across the dining area, Harrison Reed sat back in his chair, his eyes flicking between Victor's retreating figure and the Thompson family. It was clear Harrison wasn't done addressing what had happened. Moments later, Samantha returned with a tray of water glasses. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed them on the table. "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," she said softly. "I'll be your server tonight. If there's anything I can do to make you more comfortable, please let me know." "Thank you, Samantha," Emily said, her voice kind and understanding. "You've already done so much." Samantha offered a nervous smile before hurrying back to the bar, where she whispered to another staff member. Lucas noticed her glancing toward the kitchen, where Victor's silhouette was faintly visible through the glass doors. "He's not letting this go," Lucas murmured to Emily, leaning in so the children couldn't hear. Emily nodded, her unease growing. "Do you think it's about us? Or is something bigger happening here?" "Maybe both," Lucas replied, his tone cautious. Behind the kitchen doors, Victor paced back and forth, his frustration boiling over. He slammed a hand on the counter, startling the sous chef diligently chopping vegetables nearby. "This is unacceptable," Victor hissed, his voice low but furious. "Who does he think he is, undermining me in front of everyone?" The sous chef kept his head down, replying cautiously, "Maybe it's best to let it go, Victor. You don't want to make things worse." Victor's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Let it go? He humiliated me in front of the entire restaurant for those people. They don't even belong here." The sous chef froze, his knife still in hand. He glanced toward the kitchen doors, ensuring no one else could hear Victor's outburst. "That's enough," the sous chef muttered, keeping his voice low. "If you keep talking like that, you'll only dig yourself a deeper hole." Victor shot him a glare, but said nothing more. His mind raced, already formulating a plan to regain control of the situation. Tensions rise in the dining room. At the table, Emily did her best to keep the evening light-hearted for Alex and Lily. The children giggled as they perused the menu, debating whether to order steak or pasta. Emily smiled softly at their innocence, but her thoughts remained elsewhere. Lucas kept his eyes on the rest of the room, noting the whispers and glances from other patrons. It wasn't just their family that had noticed the confrontation. From his table, Harrison finally stood, his movements slow and deliberate. He made his way to the kitchen, disappearing behind the swinging doors. "What do you think he's doing?" Emily whispered. Lucas shook his head. "Whatever it is, I don't think Victor will like it." Behind the closed doors, Harrison's commanding presence filled the cramped kitchen. Victor turned sharply to face him, his irritation evident. "What exactly are you doing, barging into my kitchen?" Victor snapped. Harrison folded his arms, his expression cool and courageous. "Your kitchen?" he said evenly. "Let me remind you, Victor, this entire establishment is under my ownership. and right now, your behavior is jeopardizing everything this restaurant stands for." Victor scoffed, throwing his towel onto the counter. "I've been running this place for years, Harrison. I know what's best for it. You don't get to walk in here and undermine me." "This isn't about authority, Victor," Harrison replied, calm but firm. "It's about integrity. Tonight, you crossed a line. Discrimination has no place in my restaurant." Victor's face twisted with anger. "Discrimination? Don't lecture me. I was protecting the image of this establishment. People like them don't belong here. They don't fit the clientele we're trying to attract." The words hung in the air like a slap, the weight of their meaning undeniable. Harrison's jaw tightened, and his calm exterior cracked enough to show the simmering anger beneath. "You've just proven my point," Harrison said sharply. "You're not protecting the image of this restaurant. You're destroying it." Victor stepped back, realizing the gravity of Harrison's words. "You can't be serious. You won't waste years of hard work because of one misunderstanding." "This wasn't a misunderstanding," Harrison countered, his voice rising. "It was a deliberate act, not your first offense. I've been hearing complaints for months from staff and customers alike. Tonight confirmed everything I needed to know." Victor's breath hitched, his confidence wavering. "You're firing me over this?" Harrison nodded, his expression resolute. "Effective immediately. Collect your things and leave before the night is over. Security will escort you if necessary." Victor opened his mouth to argue, but found no words. Without another word, he stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door behind him. As Harrison returned to the dining room, the tension was thick enough to cut. Victor's dramatic exit hadn't gone unnoticed, and curious whispers filled the air. Lucas and Emily exchanged glances at their table, sensing something monumental had just occurred. Harrison approached them, his expression calm but serious. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," Harrison lowered his voice, "I'd like to speak with you after dinner if you don't mind. There's something I think you should know." Emily and Lucas exchanged a glance. "Of course," Lucas replied, his tone measured. "Enjoy your meal," Harrison said with a faint smile. "I'll be waiting when you're ready." As he returned to his table, Lucas leaned closer to Emily. "This isn't over," he murmured. Emily nodded, her eyes drifting to the kitchen doors where Victor had disappeared moments earlier. Whatever was coming next, it was clear their evening was far from ordinary. As the evening progressed, the tension in the restaurant gradually eased. With Victor gone, the staff seemed less anxious, and the hum of conversation in the dining room began to return to normal. Lucas and Emily tried to focus on their meal, encouraging Alex and Lily to enjoy the evening despite the earlier drama. The children's laughter brought a temporary calm to the table, but Lucas remained on edge. His sharp instincts told him that whatever Harrison had in mind wouldn't be simple. "Do you think we should leave after dinner?" Emily whispered. "I'm not sure how much more of this I want the kids to witness." Lucas shook his head. "Let's see what Mr. Reed has to say. I get the feeling he's not someone who does anything without a reason." Emily nodded, though her unease lingered. When the family finished their dessert, Samantha returned with a polite smile. "Mr. Reed asked if you'd join him at his table when you're ready," she said softly. Emily glanced at Lucas, who nodded. "Thank you, Samantha. We'll head over now." Harrison was waiting for them at a quiet table near the back of the restaurant. His demeanor was calm, but his eyes carried a sense of purpose. He gestured for them to sit, and Lucas and Emily obliged, leaving the children at their original table with coloring books the staff had provided. "I hope you enjoyed your meal," Harrison began, his tone polite but direct. "It was lovely," Emily said, her voice warm but guarded. "Thank you for your generosity." Harrison nodded, folding his hands on the table. "You're welcome. But I didn't ask to speak with you to apologize for Victor's behavior. There's something I'd like to discuss, an opportunity, if you will." Lucas tilted his head slightly, his curiosity piqued. "What kind of opportunity?" Harrison leaned forward slightly, his voice lowering. "I bought this restaurant 5 years ago to create a space that celebrated inclusivity and community. For a while, I thought I'd succeeded. But over the last year I began to notice cracks, complaints from staff, subtle shifts in the clientele, and most troubling, Victor's attitude." He paused, his gaze steady on Lucas and Emily. "I should have acted sooner, but tonight gave me the clarity I needed. And it gave me an idea." Emily glanced at Lucas, her brow furrowed. What kind of idea? Harrison smiled faintly, his expression softening. I'm planning to step back from active ownership. I've been considering it for some time, but I needed the right people to take over who understand what this place could and should be. Lucas's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you saying? Harrison nodded. Yes, Mr. Thompson. I'm offering you and your wife the chance to take ownership of this restaurant. The weight of Harrison's words settled over the table like a heavy fog. Emily's eyes widened, and even Lucas, usually composed, leaned back in his chair, momentarily at a loss for words. You're offering us the restaurant? Lucas finally managed his tone calm but tinged with disbelief. Yes, Harrison said simply. I've watched how you handled yourself tonight with composure, dignity, and respect, even in the face of blatant injustice. That's the kind of leadership this place needs. Emily shook her head slightly, her voice soft but incredulous. But we don't have any experience running a restaurant. Why us? Harrison smiled faintly. Because leadership isn't just about experience, it's about character. The operational side can be learned, and I'll ensure you have the support you need. But what can't be taught is the ability to inspire trust and respect. And tonight, you've shown me you have that ability. Lucas rubbed his hands together thoughtfully, his eyes distant as he processed the offer. This is a lot to take in, he admitted. What's the catch? Harrison chuckled lightly, appreciating the directness of the question. No catch, he replied, but there is one condition. If you accept, I want you to commit to making this place a true reflection of inclusivity and community, a space where no one has to experience what you went through tonight. Emily looked at Lucas, her eyes searching his for an answer. This could change everything, she whispered. Lucas nodded slowly, still deep in thought. It could, he said, but it's a huge responsibility. As the conversation continued, Harrison reassured them of his intentions. I'll remain a silent partner for the first year, he explained. Not to interfere, but to provide guidance and ensure a smooth transition. You won't be alone in this. Lucas and Emily exchanged another glance, their silent communication speaking volumes. The offer was almost too generous, yet it carried a sense of urgency that Lucas couldn't ignore. Why now? Lucas asked finally. You said you've been thinking about stepping back for a while. What made tonight the turning point? Harrison's expression grew somber. Because tonight reminded me of why I opened this place in the first place. It's not just a restaurant, it's a symbol of the values I hold dear. However, those values were undermined by Victor's management. I can't let that continue. And frankly, I see in you the kind of people who can rebuild what's been lost. Emily reached for Lucas's hand under the table, her voice steady but cautious. We'll need time to think about this, she said. Of course, Harrison replied. Take all the time you need. My attorney can draft the terms, and we can revisit this when you're ready. As Lucas and Emily returned to their table, the children looked up expectantly. What were you talking about? Alex asked, his curiosity evident. Just some grown-up stuff, Emily said with a smile, ruffling his hair. Nothing for you to worry about. But even as they tried to focus on the rest of their evening, the weight of Harrison's proposal lingered in their minds. It wasn't just an offer. It was a chance to turn an unexpected humiliation into an opportunity for transformation. As they left the restaurant, Harrison stood by the door, offering a polite nod. Whatever you decide, he said, know that I believe in you. Lucas returned the nod. Thank you, Mr. Reed. We'll be in touch. The drive home was quiet, each of them lost in thought. The children drifted off to sleep in the back seat, while Lucas and Emily exchanged occasional glances, their unspoken questions hanging in the air. By the time they reached home, Lucas knew one thing for certain. This wasn't a decision they could take lightly. The Thompson home was quiet that night, but Lucas's mind was anything but. He sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, staring at the faint patterns on its surface, as if they held the answers he was searching for. Emily, in her robe, joined him. She had put the children to bed, but her restless energy matched his. She sat down across from him, her expression both curious and concerned. You've been quiet since we got home, she said softly. What's on your mind? Lucas leaned back in his chair and sighed deeply. I keep running through every scenario, he admitted. What if this is too big for us? What if we fail? What if there's more to this deal than Harrison let on? Emily reached across the table, her hand finding his. Those are all valid questions, she said. But Lucas, when have we ever backed down from a challenge? Lucas looked up at her, his tired eyes meeting her determined gaze. This isn't just about us, Emily, he said. Taking on a restaurant, it's not like anything we've done before. It's a whole new world. Emily smiled faintly, her thumb brushing over his knuckles. You're right, it is. But think about what it could mean for us, for Alex and Lily. And not just for us. You heard Harrison. This isn't just about running a business, it's about building something meaningful, something better than what was there before. Lucas nodded slowly. Her words were starting to resonate, but the weight of the decision still loomed large. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as Emily flipped pancakes for the children. The smell of syrup and coffee filled the air, but Lucas barely noticed. He sat in his usual spot at the table, his hands clasped in front of him, lost in thought. Daddy, are you okay? Lily asked, her small voice pulling him out of his reverie. Lucas smiled, reaching out to ruffle her hair. I'm fine, sweetheart, just thinking. About what? Alex chimed in, his fork poised over his plate. Grown-up stuff, Lucas said with a chuckle, using Emily's line from the night before. You don't need to worry about it. Emily glanced at him from the stove, her expression knowing. She flipped the last pancake onto a plate and joined them at the table, placing the food in front of the kids. You've got that look again, she said softly as the children dug into their breakfast. The one where you're overthinking everything. Lucas exhaled heavily. I just don't want to make the wrong choice. This isn't like deciding what to cook for dinner. This is big, Emily, life-changing. Emily reached for his hand under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. I know it's big, she said, but sometimes the biggest decisions are the ones that matter most. And if anyone can handle it, it's you. Later that day, Lucas and Emily sat in the living room, the kids playing on the floor with their toys. Emily had a notebook open, jotting down pros and cons while Lucas paced back and forth. Let's look at it logically, Emily said. What are our biggest concerns? Experience, Lucas replied without hesitation. We don't have any. Running a restaurant is completely outside our wheelhouse. Emily nodded, writing it down. True. But Harrison said he'd provide support, at least for the first year. And we'd have the staff to rely on, too. Okay, Lucas said. What about finances? Even if he's not asking for a buy-in, there are still operational costs to think about. What if the restaurant doesn't do well? Emily tapped her pen thoughtfully. It's a risk, she admitted, but Harrison mentioned covering the first 6 months of costs. That gives us a bit of a safety net. Lucas sighed, running a hand through his hair. I just don't want to put our family in a bad position. Emily looked at him, her eyes soft but steady. Lucas, the fact that you're thinking about all this is why I know we can do it. You're careful, you're thoughtful, and you've never let us down. Lucas stopped pacing and sat down beside her. What about the kids, he asked. How do we make this work while still giving them the time and attention they need? We've always found a way, Emily said simply, and we'll find a way again. Alex and Lily, who had been listening quietly, suddenly chimed in. Mom, Dad, are we moving to the restaurant? Alex asked. Emily laughed softly. No, sweetheart, but if we decide to take this on, it will mean a lot of changes. Can we visit the restaurant a lot? Lily asked, her face lighting up. Lucas chuckled, leaning forward to ruffle her hair. Maybe, he said. We'll see. That evening, after the children were asleep, Lucas and Emily sat together on the couch, their hands intertwined. The quiet of the house was a stark contrast to the noise in their minds. So, Emily said, breaking the silence. What's the plan? Lucas took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the wall in front of him. We give Harrison our answer tomorrow, he said. And I think the answer is yes. Emily's lips curved into a soft smile. You're sure? I'm sure, Lucas said firmly. We can do this. Together. Emily leaned her head against his shoulder, her heart swelling with pride and hope. Then, let's make it ours. The next morning, Lucas and Emily dropped the kids off at Emily's sister's house and headed to the restaurant. The drive was quiet, filled with anticipation. As they pulled into the parking lot, Lucas gripped the steering wheel tightly for a moment before exhaling slowly. You ready for this? He asked, glancing at Emily. Emily reached over, placing a hand on his. Ready as I'll ever be, she replied with a smile. They walked through the restaurant's glass doors where Harrison was waiting at the bar. He stood as they approached, his smile warm but professional. "I had a feeling I'd see you today," he said. Lucas extended his hand. "We've thought it over," he said, "and we're ready to take the leap." Harrison's smile widened as he shook Lucas's hand firmly. "You've made the right choice," he said. "Let's sit down and talk through the next steps." As they moved to a nearby table, Lucas glanced around the restaurant. It felt different now, less like a place where they'd been humiliated and more like a place they could transform. Emily caught his eye, her smile reassuring. For the first time since the offer had been made, Lucas felt a flicker of excitement outweighing his nerves. The meeting with Harrison was meticulous but reassuring. He had already prepared a detailed agreement outlining the terms of the transition. "This document," Harrison explained, tapping the stack of papers in front of him, "includes everything you need to know. Financials, staffing, vendor contracts, and operating procedures. I've made sure the transition will be as smooth as possible for you." Emily flipped through the pages, occasionally glancing at Lucas, who sat deep in thought. "This all seems very comprehensive," she said. "It is," Harrison replied with a faint smile. "I've spent years building this restaurant, and while I'm stepping back, I want to ensure it remains in good hands." Lucas leaned forward, his fingers lightly brushing the edges of the papers. "We appreciate everything you've done to prepare us for this," he said. "But we'll be honest, this is a lot to take in. We're going to need your guidance." Harrison's smile widened. "And you'll have it. I'll stay on as a silent partner for the first year, as we discussed. My role will be purely advisory, unless you specifically ask for more involvement." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense," she said. "It's reassuring to know you'll still be here to help us navigate the learning curve." Harrison handed Lucas a pen. "When you're ready," he said, "just sign here, and the restaurant will officially be yours." Lucas took the pen, glancing at Emily one last time. Her expression was calm, her eyes steady. She gave him a small nod. With a deep breath, Lucas signed his name, followed by Emily. Harrison raised his glass of water in a symbolic toast. "To new beginnings," he said warmly. "To new beginnings," Lucas and Emily echoed, clinking their glasses together. After the papers were signed, Harrison led Lucas and Emily to the bar, where a handful of staff members had gathered. Samantha stood at the front, her hands clasped nervously, while Marco, the head chef, leaned against the counter with his arms crossed. Harrison cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Everyone," he began, his tone both authoritative and welcoming, "I'd like to introduce you to the new owners of this restaurant, Lucas and Emily Thompson. Starting today, they'll be taking over operations." The room was quiet for a moment, the announcement met with a mix of surprise and cautious optimism. Samantha was the first to step forward, offering a tentative smile. "Welcome," she said, her voice soft but sincere. "I'm Samantha. I've been here for 3 years, and I'm really looking forward to working with you." Emily returned the smile, reaching out to shake her hand. "Thank you, Samantha. We're grateful to have you on the team." Marco followed, his gruff voice breaking the silence. "I'm Marco," he said, "head chef since this place opened. If you need to know anything about the kitchen, I'm your guy." Lucas nodded, appreciating Marco's directness. "We're lucky to have someone with your experience, Marco. We'll be relying on you to help us get up to speed." One by one, the rest of the staff introduced themselves, their initial reservations giving way to cautious curiosity. Once the introductions were over, Harrison pulled Lucas and Emily aside. "The team is solid," he said quietly, "but they've been through a lot under Victor's leadership. Trust is going to take time to rebuild." Lucas nodded, his expression serious. "What's the first step?" "Listen," Harrison said simply. "Spend time with them. Understand their concerns. Make it clear that things are going to be different under your leadership." Emily glanced toward Samantha and Marco, who were chatting quietly by the bar. "We'll start today," she said firmly. Lucas and Emily spent the rest of the day familiarizing themselves with the restaurant's operations. Lucas dove into the financial records, studying spreadsheets and ledgers in the back office. Though numbers weren't his forte, he was determined to understand the business inside and out. Meanwhile, Emily immersed herself in the daily routines of the staff. She shadowed Samantha during her shift, learning about the challenges servers faced, and spent time in the kitchen observing Marco and his team. Victor was a micromanager, Samantha confided as she organized the drink menus. He didn't trust us to make decisions, even small ones. It made the job difficult. Emily nodded sympathetically. That's going to change, she said. We trust your judgment, Samantha. If there's ever an issue, we want to hear about it. Samantha's smile grew a little brighter. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That means a lot. Call me Emily, she replied with a wink. While Emily connected with the front-of-house staff, Lucas met with Marco in the bustling kitchen. The head chef had pulled out a thick binder filled with recipes and notes. Victor wasn't a fan of change, Marco explained, flipping through the pages. He wanted everything done his way, even when customers asked for something different. Lucas raised an eyebrow. What would you change if you had the chance? Marco's eyes lit up as he pulled out a separate sheet of handwritten notes. I've got some ideas for seasonal specials, he said. Dishes that reflect the diversity of the neighborhood. People love seeing their culture represented on the menu. Lucas studied the notes, impressed by Marco's passion and attention to detail. I like it, he said. Let's set up a tasting. If the team's on board, we'll roll it out. Marco grinned, his enthusiasm palpable. You got it, boss. By the end of the week, the Thompsons began noticing subtle but significant changes. Staff who had been reserved or withdrawn under Victor's management were starting to open up. The dining room felt livelier, the hum of conversation filled with genuine warmth. Even the customers, many of whom had been wary of the change in ownership, seemed more at ease. Some lingered longer, chatting with servers and commenting on the improved atmosphere. One evening, as Lucas and Emily walked through the dining room, Samantha approached them with a comment card in hand. I thought you'd want to see this, she said, holding it out to Lucas. He read the note aloud. The new energy in this place is incredible. It feels like a community now, not just a restaurant. Emily's eyes glistened with pride. That's exactly what we wanted. Lucas handed the card back to Samantha with a smile. Thank you for sharing this, he said. It means a lot. As the restaurant prepared to close for the night, Lucas and Emily sat together at one of the tables, reflecting on the week. It's been a whirlwind, Lucas said, his voice tinged with exhaustion, but also satisfaction. Emily reached for his hand, her smile soft but steady. It has. But we're making progress, one step at a time. Lucas nodded, his gaze sweeping across the quiet dining room. We're building something real here, Emily, something to be proud of. And we're doing it together, she said. The Friday dinner rush hit harder than expected. As customers streamed into the restaurant, the once carefully orchestrated rhythm of the team began to falter. Emily, who was greeting guests at the host stand, noticed the tension in the air almost immediately. Lucas, walking through the dining area, caught sight of Samantha hurrying toward the kitchen, her face flushed and her expression strained. He quickened his pace to intercept her. Samantha, is everything okay? He asked. She paused, her hands clutching an empty tray. We're falling behind, she said. The kitchen is swamped and orders are getting delayed. Customers are starting to complain. Lucas nodded. I'll check in with Marco. Thanks for letting me know. As Samantha returned to her tables, Lucas headed straight for the kitchen, where the normally organized chaos had devolved into outright confusion. Inside, Marco stood by the stove, his face tight with frustration as he barked orders to his team. 2 line cooks worked frantically to keep up, but it was clear they were overwhelmed. Marco, Lucas called out, stepping closer. What's going on? Marco glanced up, his eyes dark with exhaustion. We're short-staffed, he said bluntly. One of the line cooks called out sick, and we don't have anyone to cover. Victor never let me hire backups, so now we're paying the price. Lucas frowned, his mind racing for a solution. What can I do to help? Marco hesitated, clearly unused to management offering assistance. Honestly, if someone could run food or help with plating, it'd free us up to focus on cooking. Consider it done, Lucas said. He stepped out of the kitchen and scanned the dining room until he spotted Emily. She was checking on a table, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the tension brewing behind the scenes. Emily, Lucas said as he approached, lowering his voice. The kitchen's in trouble. Marco needs backup. Without hesitation, Emily nodded. Let's do it, she said, rolling up her sleeves. Emily dove into plating dishes with Marco and his team, her movements surprisingly efficient as she garnished plates and checked orders for accuracy. Meanwhile, Lucas began running food to tables, using the opportunity to interact with customers. "Thank you for your patience," he said with a warm smile as he set down plates of pasta for a couple near the window. "We're a little short-staffed tonight, but we're doing our best to make sure your experience is still top-notch." The couple smiled back, their initial frustration melting away. "We appreciate that," the man said. Not many owners would step in like this. Elsewhere, Samantha rallied the other servers, her voice ringing with determination. "Let's keep it moving, everyone," she called out. "We're almost caught up." Gradually, the energy in the restaurant shifted. The staff's movements became more coordinated, and the once chaotic kitchen regained its rhythm. By the end of the night, the backlog of orders had been cleared, and the last plates left the kitchen without a hitch. Marco leaned against the counter, his shoulders sagging with relief. "Thanks for stepping in," he said to Emily, his tone softer than usual. "I didn't think we'd make it through tonight." "We're a team, Marco," Emily replied, wiping her hands on a towel. "That's how it works." Lucas, meanwhile, delivered the final order of the evening, a dessert for an older couple who had been watching the night's events unfold with interest. "You don't see many owners doing what you just did tonight," the man remarked. "It says a lot about the kind of place you're building." Lucas smiled, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "That's the goal," he said. "A place where everyone feels cared for, staff and customers alike." As the last patrons left and the staff began cleaning up, Lucas and Emily sat together at the bar, sipping glasses of water. The adrenaline from the evening had worn off, leaving behind a deep, bone-weary fatigue. "That wasn't exactly what I had in mind when we took this on," Lucas said with a wry smile. Emily laughed softly, brushing a stray hair from her face. "Me neither," she admitted. "But I wouldn't change a thing." Lucas reached for her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "We're making it work, one step at a time," he said. "And we're not alone," Emily added, glancing toward Samantha and Marco, who were chatting animatedly about menu ideas for the coming week. "This team, they're starting to believe in what we're building." Lucas nodded, his eyes bright with determination. "Then, let's keep giving them a reason to believe." The next week, Lucas and Emily began implementing changes inspired by the challenges of that Friday night. With Marco's input, they introduced a rotating menu of seasonal dishes that celebrated the diversity of the neighborhood. The announcement generated excitement among the staff and curiosity from the regular customers. To address the staffing issue, Lucas prioritized hiring new team members. He conducted interviews personally, seeking candidates who shared their vision for the restaurant. "We're not just hiring skills," he told Emily. "We're building a culture." At the same time, Emily focused on fostering open communication with the existing staff. She encouraged them to voice their concerns and ideas, creating a sense of ownership and collaboration that had been sorely missing under Victor's leadership. One evening, Samantha approached Emily with a suggestion. "I've noticed that customers really respond to the personal touches," she said. "Like when we explain the inspiration behind the new dishes. Maybe we could add little notes on the menu to share those stories?" Emily beamed. "That's a fantastic idea, Samantha. Let's make it happen." By the end of the week, the atmosphere in the restaurant had shifted once again. Staff who had once been hesitant were now engaging more openly. Diners lingered at their tables, chatting with servers and sharing positive feedback. One particularly touching moment came when a regular customer left a note on a comment card. "This place feels like home now. It's not just a restaurant, it's a community." When Samantha showed the card to Lucas and Emily, Emily's eyes glistened with emotion. "That's exactly what we wanted," she said softly. Lucas nodded, his smile tinged with pride. "We're on the right track," he said, "but this is just the beginning." As the restaurant continued to evolve, Lucas and Emily focused on creating a workplace where trust and respect were paramount. They scheduled a team meeting after closing one evening to outline their vision and address lingering concerns. The staff gathered in the dining room, sitting around the tables they had worked at for years. The air was heavy, with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Marco leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, while Samantha sat near the front, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Lucas stood at the head of the room, with Emily by his side. He glanced at her for reassurance before beginning. First, I want to thank all of you, Lucas said, his voice steady but sincere. The last few weeks have been a whirlwind for Emily and me, but your hard work has kept this place running. We couldn't have done it without you. A few murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, though most of the staff remained quiet. We also know, Lucas continued, that things haven't always been easy here. Under Victor's leadership, this wasn't the kind of workplace it should have been. And that's something we're committed to changing. Emily stepped forward, her voice warm yet firm. We want this restaurant to be a place where everyone feels valued, staff and customers alike. That means open communication. If you have ideas, concerns, or feedback, we want to hear it. Our door is always open. Marco was the first to speak, his tone blunt but not unkind. What about staffing? He asked. We've been stretched thin for months. If we're going to handle these new menu changes, we need more people in the kitchen. Lucas nodded. You're absolutely right, Marco. We've already started reaching out to candidates and will be hiring additional staff in the coming weeks. The last thing we want is for anyone to feel overworked or unsupported. Samantha raised her hand next, her voice hesitant but hopeful. What about Victor's rules? She asked. He was strict about how we handled customers, even when they were unreasonable. Will that change? Emily smiled gently. Yes, it will. We trust your judgment, Samantha, and everyone else's. If a customer is being unfair or inappropriate, you'll have our full support to handle the situation respectfully but firmly. No one should have to endure mistreatment just because they're wearing an apron. A ripple of relief passed through the room. Samantha's shoulders visibly relaxed, and Marco uncrossed his arms, leaning forward slightly in his chair. Lucas took a step closer to the group, his gaze moving from face to face. This isn't going to be an overnight transformation, he said. It's going to take time, effort, and patience. But Emily and I are committed to making this a place we can all be proud of. And we can't do it without you. For the first time, a spark of optimism lit up the faces of the staff. The walls of doubt that had surrounded them for so long began to crack. When the meeting ended, the energy in the room felt lighter. As the staff dispersed to finish their closing duties, Samantha lingered behind. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, her voice soft but sincere. It feels good to finally believe in this place again. Lucas smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. That means more than you know, Samantha. We couldn't do this without you. In the weeks that followed, Lucas and Emily continued to build trust with the staff. Lucas organized regular one-on-one meetings with each team member, taking the time to understand their concerns and goals. Meanwhile, Emily introduced small but meaningful changes, like celebrating staff birthdays and creating a suggestion box for ideas. These gestures, though simple, began to foster a sense of belonging and community among the team. One day, Marco approached Lucas in the kitchen. Got a minute? He asked, holding a folder of notes. Of course, Lucas said, setting aside his clipboard. Marco handed him the folder. I've been working on some new ideas for the menu. Seasonal dishes inspired by local ingredients. Thought you might want to take a look. Lucas flipped through the pages, impressed by Marco's creativity and attention to detail. These are fantastic, he said. Let's set up a tasting and get the team's input. Marco's usual gruff demeanor softened into a faint smile. Thanks, boss. Means a lot. One evening, as the restaurant bustled with activity, Lucas noticed a new level of engagement among the staff. Servers moved efficiently between tables, smiling as they interacted with customers. Marco and his team worked seamlessly in the kitchen, their laughter occasionally spilling out into the dining room. The transformation was tangible. The once tense atmosphere had been replaced by a warmth that felt almost palpable. During a lull in the rush, Samantha approached Lucas with another comment card. Thought you'd want to see this, she said, handing it to him. Lucas read the note aloud. The changes here are incredible. The staff seems so happy, and this is evident in the service. This has become my favorite place to dine. Emily, who had joined him moments earlier, beamed with pride. That's exactly what we've been working toward, she said. Lucas nodded, his chest swelling with a mix of gratitude and determination. We're on the right path, but there's still more to do. That night, as the last customers left and the staff began cleaning up, Lucas and Emily sat together at one of the tables, reflecting on how far they'd come. It's amazing how much has changed in such a short time, Emily said, her voice tinged with wonder. Lucas smiled, his eyes sweeping across the quiet dining room. And it's not just the restaurant, he said, it's the people. They're starting to believe in what we're building. Emily reached for his hand, her touch grounding him. We're building something special here, Lucas. And it's just the beginning. Lucas nodded, renewing a sense of purpose in his gaze. Then let's keep going. There's so much more we can do. Weeks turned into months, and the restaurant's transformation was well underway. The new seasonal menu had become a hit with diners, drawing in a diverse crowd eager to experience the flavors of the community. The once frustrated staff now worked as a cohesive team, united by a shared vision. But not every day was smooth sailing. The restaurant's growth brought new challenges that tested Lucas and Emily's resolve. One evening, as the dining room hummed with activity, Lucas spotted a familiar face entering the restaurant. His heart sank as he recognized Victor Green. Gone was the overconfident swagger he had once carried. In its place was an air of discomfort and hesitation. Victor lingered near the entrance, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on Lucas and Emily, who were standing near the host's stand. Emily noticed Lucas tense beside her and followed his gaze. "It's Victor," she said quietly, her expression unreadable. Lucas nodded. "Let's see what he wants." Victor approached them slowly, offering a faint, sheepish smile. "Lucas, Emily," he said, his voice quieter than they remembered. I wanted to stop by. I've heard about the changes you've made here, and I wanted to see it for myself." Lucas's tone was polite but firm. "It's good of you to stop by. As you can see, the restaurant is doing well." Victor nodded, his gaze dropping to the floor. "It looks great," he admitted. "The staff seems happy, and the customers? It's different now." "Better." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I wanted to apologize," he said finally, "for how I treated you that night, and for everything else. I know I can't undo what I did, but I've been trying to make some changes in my own life." Emily softened slightly, her voice calm but measured. "We appreciate the apology, Victor. What happened that night pushed us into something we never expected, but it also gave us the chance to build something better." Victor nodded again, his sincerity evident. "If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. I mean that." Lucas studied him for a moment before offering a small nod. "The best thing you can do is take what you've learned and do better moving forward." Victor gave a faint, grateful smile. "I will." As Victor left, Emily glanced at Lucas. "Do you think he's genuine?" Lucas shrugged, his expression thoughtful. "Maybe. Time will tell." A few nights later, another challenge arose. The restaurant was fully booked, and the kitchen was operating at maximum capacity. Marco's team worked tirelessly, but tensions flared as the pressure mounted. Midway through the dinner rush, one of the ovens stopped working, throwing the entire kitchen into chaos. Marco cursed under his breath as he assessed the damage. "This is a disaster," he muttered. "We can't keep up with half the equipment down." Lucas rushed in, his brow furrowed as he took in the scene. "What do you need?" he asked. Marco gestured to the broken oven. "We need this fixed, fast, and we need to reorganize the workflow until it's back up and running." Lucas nodded, stepping into action. He called a repair technician, and he worked with Marco to adjust the kitchen's operations. Dishes that didn't require the oven were prioritized, and Emily stepped in to manage communication with the servers, ensuring customers were informed about potential delays. Samantha, who had become a natural leader among the staff, rallied the team. "Let's keep it moving," she called out. "We've handled worse before." Despite the setback, the team pulled together, and by the end of the night, the customers left satisfied, many praising the food and service. The next morning, Lucas and Emily met with Marco to discuss long-term solutions for the kitchen. "We can't afford another night like that," Marco said bluntly. "We need to upgrade the equipment. Some of this stuff is older than I am." Lucas agreed. "You're right. Let's prioritize replacing the essentials. We'll work with Harrison to figure out the budget." Emily added, "And let's create a contingency plan for when things go wrong. We can't predict every problem, but we can be prepared." Marco nodded, his respect for the Thompsons growing. "Sounds like a plan." Over time, the challenges only strengthened the bonds within the team. Lucas and Emily's hands-on approach and unwavering support inspired the staff to rise to every occasion. One day, Samantha approached Emily with an idea. "What if we host a community night?" she suggested. "Something where we showcase the new menu and invite local artists or musicians to perform." Emily's face lit up. "I love that idea, Samantha. Let's make it happen." The event was a resounding success. The restaurant was packed with guests, many of whom were visiting for the first time. The staff, dressed in matching aprons that read "A Taste of Home," worked seamlessly to deliver a memorable experience. As word spread about the restaurant's transformation, reservations began to fill up weeks in advance. Food bloggers and local news outlets took notice, featuring the restaurant in glowing reviews. One evening, as Lucas reviewed the latest financial report, Emily joined him in the office. "We're in the black," Lucas said, a note of pride in his voice. "For the first time since we took over." Emily smiled, leaning over his shoulder to glance at the numbers. "That's amazing," she said. "And it's all thanks to this team. They've worked so hard to get us here." Lucas nodded. "We should do something to celebrate. Show them how much we appreciate everything they've done." The next week, the Thompsons hosted a staff appreciation dinner, closing the restaurant for the evening. They transformed the dining room into a banquet hall, complete with decorations, music, and a menu curated by Marco himself. As the team laughed and celebrated together, Lucas and Emily stood at the front of the room, raising their glasses in a toast. "To all of you," Lucas said, his voice filled with gratitude. "This restaurant wouldn't be what it is today without your hard work and dedication. Here's to everything we've built together and to everything we'll accomplish in the future." The room erupted in cheers, and for a moment, Lucas and Emily felt the weight of their journey lift. They had turned a moment of humiliation into a story of resilience and triumph, and they knew the best was yet to come. Months passed, and the restaurant had not only stabilized but thrived under the leadership of Lucas and Emily. The transformation was evident in every corner. The vibrant decor, the buzzing dining room filled with laughter, and the energized team who now felt more like a family than co-workers. One evening, as the dinner service wound down, a man stepped through the restaurant's doors. He hesitated near the entrance, his gaze scanning the bustling space. Lucas, who had just finished speaking with a table of regulars, noticed him immediately. It was Victor Green. Emily joined Lucas near the entrance, her expression unreadable as they both recognized their former adversary. Victor approached cautiously, his usual air of bravado replaced by genuine humility. He held a small envelope in his hand, which he clutched tightly. "Lucas, Emily," he began, his voice quieter than they remembered. "Thank you for letting me stop by. I wanted to see what you've done here. It's remarkable." Lucas folded his arms, his tone polite but measured. "We've worked hard to make it what it should have been all along." Victor nodded, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I can see that. The staff, the atmosphere, the customers. It's all so different now. Better." He hesitated before continuing. "I also wanted to give you this." He held out the envelope. Lucas took it, exchanging a glance with Emily before opening it. Inside was a handwritten note. "To Lucas and Emily, I'm deeply sorry for my actions. What happened that night was wrong, and it's taken me a long time to truly understand the damage I caused. You've built something extraordinary here, something I could never have achieved. Thank you for showing me the value of humility and growth. I hope this small gesture can begin to repair the harm I caused. Victor." Enclosed was a check made out to the restaurant for a significant sum. Emily looked up, her voice soft but firm. "We appreciate this, Victor. It doesn't erase the past, but it's a step forward." Victor nodded, his face filled with a mix of gratitude and relief. "If there's ever anything I can do to help, please let me know." Lucas extended his hand. "The best thing you can do is continue to learn from this and do better." Victor shook his hand, his expression sincere. "I will." As Victor left, Emily placed a hand on Lucas's arm. "Do you think he's truly changed?" she asked. Lucas sighed, his gaze following Victor out the door. "I hope so. Everyone deserves a chance to grow." The following weeks brought even more growth to the restaurant. The check from Victor allowed Lucas and Emily to make long-overdue upgrades to the kitchen and dining room. Marco's dream of a fully modernized kitchen became a reality, while Emily worked with Samantha to enhance the dining experience further. One Friday evening, the restaurant hosted its first community gala. The event featured live music, a special menu curated by Marco, and a silent auction to support local charities. The turnout was incredible, with every table filled and the atmosphere electric with excitement. As Lucas stood near the bar, surveying the room, Harrison Reed approached him, a glass of wine in hand. "You've done it, Lucas," Harrison said, his voice warm with pride. "This place is everything I hoped it could be, and more." Lucas smiled, shaking his former mentor's hand. "We couldn't have done it without your support, Harrison. Thank you for believing in us." Harrison chuckled. "The belief was easy. Watching you bring it to life has been the real reward." Later that evening, as the gala wound down, Lucas and Emily stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The cool night air was refreshing, and the soft glow of the restaurant's sign illuminated the sidewalk. Emily leaned against Lucas's shoulder, her voice thoughtful. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Lucas smiled, his arm draping around her. "It still feels surreal sometimes," he admitted. "But looking at what we've built, I wouldn't trade it for anything." Emily nodded, her gaze drifting toward the restaurant's windows. Inside, she could see Samantha laughing with a group of diners, Marco chatting animatedly with a server, and customers enjoying their meals. "It's not just a restaurant anymore," she said softly. "It's a place where people feel like they belong." Lucas squeezed her hand, his heart swelling with pride. "And it's only the beginning." As the months turned into years, the restaurant became a beloved fixture in the community. Lucas and Emily continued to innovate, introducing new dishes, hosting events, and expanding their outreach. The team grew stronger, with many staff members becoming long-term fixtures who thrived under the Thompsons' leadership. Samantha, once a nervous waitress unsure of her place, rose to become the restaurant's manager, her confidence and dedication inspiring everyone around her. Marco, now a local culinary star, led the kitchen with creativity and passion, mentoring young chefs who admired his expertise. For Lucas and Emily, the journey was never without challenges, but every obstacle they overcame only strengthened their resolve. They had turned a moment of humiliation into a story of resilience, proving that even the most unexpected beginnings could lead to extraordinary outcomes. One evening, as the restaurant celebrated its 5-year anniversary under Lucas and Emily's ownership, the entire team gathered for a special dinner after closing. Standing at the head of the table, Lucas raised his glass, his voice filled with emotion. "When Emily and I walked into this restaurant for the first time, we never could have imagined where that night would lead. What started as a painful moment became the foundation of something beautiful because of all of you." Emily joined him, her smile radiant. "This place isn't just about the food or the service, it's about the people. All of you have made this more than a restaurant. You've made it a home." As they clinked their glasses together, the room erupted in cheers, laughter, and heartfelt applause. Lucas and Emily exchanged a look, their silent communication reflecting the depth of their journey. They had faced adversity, doubt, and fear, but they had emerged stronger together. The future was theirs, and they were ready for whatever came next. The story of Lucas and Emily Thompson is a testament to resilience, determination, and the power of community. What began as a night of humiliation turned into a transformative journey, not just for them, but for everyone involved. Their ability to turn adversity into opportunity and create a space of inclusivity and warmth teaches us a profound lesson. True leadership isn't about authority. It's about heart, integrity, and the willingness to uplift others. This story reminds us that change often starts in unexpected places. A single moment of kindness from Harrison Reed, paired with Lucas and Emily's courage to step into the unknown, led to the creation of something truly extraordinary. It also highlights the importance of community, showing how trust and collaboration can overcome even the deepest challenges. Through their efforts, the Thompsons didn't just build a thriving restaurant, they built a symbol of hope and belonging. Their story inspires us to believe in the possibilities that lie within each setback and to take bold steps toward our dreams. If this story moved you, we want to hear your thoughts. Was it inspiring? If you thought the story was good, comment with a 1. If you thought it was amazing, comment with a 2. And don't hesitate to share your own stories of triumph, resilience, or moments of unexpected change. We'd love to hear them. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to make sure you don't miss more meaningful stories like this one. Share your reflections on this story in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation about what it means to face challenges and turn them into something remarkable.